So this video is to explain the benefits of fasting and why you should give it a shot. Now, I made this video for my friend, so if you're not a friend of mine or I don't personally know you, welcome. I hope this information serves you, and let's just jump into it. So the very thing with fasting is that it shatters a lot of paradigms. And I accidentally fell into fasting. Let me give you a little bit of background before I start. Back in September, and it's about December now, 2018. And so I've been fasting for several months, off and on. I've done about 24 48-hour fasts, almost a dozen 72-hour fasts, and 3 5-day fasts. And I've learned a lot, and I've transformed a lot from the experience. And this is something I can't stop talking about. I get a lot of questions about, because inevitably when you do the longer fasts, you're gonna run into social situations that you would normally eat in, and you've gotta excuse yourself to not eat or sit at the table and not eat. And it's a little awkward, and people ask a lot of questions. So this video is to try to explain why I fast to you. Whether you want to try fasting or not is up to you, but now you will understand why I do it. So getting into fasting, and there's not a lot of research out there, holistic research, let's say. And when I say holistic, hey kitty, I'm talking about the other benefits beyond the very tangible and measurable benefits. So there's 4 main benefits, and I'm going to separate them by how they integrate with you as a person. So when we examine the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual needs of the body, fasting is one of those things that just happens to break all of the negative holding patterns and negative emotions in all 4 of those sectors with one blow, and all you have to do is stop eating. So because of that reason, if you want to see any kind of transformation in one of these, 2 of these areas, or all of these areas, performing a prolonged fast, speaking of 72 hours, 48 hours, even if it's scary to you, 5-day fast, 2-week, whatever you want to do, will actually provide you a lot of growth there. Now, fasting, isn't that scary? Isn't that wrong? Doesn't society tell you that you should eat 6 times a day at minimum, small meals, maybe throw in some extra snacks and make it 9 meals a day, because we're so obsessed with eating? When it comes to prolonged fasting, you have to be in the right mindset and courage to go through with it. Now, there was a medically supervised fast going longer than a year. I can't remember however many exact days. I'll link the study or article to that below. However, there's this man, I think he was from Scotland or something like that. He fasted for like 381, so let's say a little over a year, days, medically supervised. He didn't eat a thing. He drank water, and he survived. And this is totally possible. Like, this is just like, and mind you, he was like severely overweight, so I just want to put that out there. If you're really thin, you're probably not going to be able to fast that long, so you got to have some weight, and he lost a lot of weight. But also, like, every major religion promotes fasting. I mean, like, when you look at Christianity, like, there was a 40-day fast that happened. Jainism, there's a fast that happens for roughly a week or so. There's all these other major religions that do fasting. And it's kind of funny that when somebody tells you they're fasting because of the religion, there's so much respect given to them. Like, oh, okay, like, let me give you your space, let me do your thing. But for me, being a non-religious person, I tell people I'm fasting, like, why are you crazy? Like, what are you doing this for? There's no sense for it. And really, when you hear people say that, and if you haven't been through a fast, it's like a normal societal conditioning thing that happens to you because you've been trained your whole life to eat all the time, and it becomes ingrained in your social nature. Now, when you do a fast, you start to break down that muscle memory that really makes you feel like you have to eat all the time. So let's get into prolonged fasting. So I would recommend starting with a 72-hour water fast, and there's a proper way to do that. I won't get into this video. I'll make another video about it. But challenge yourself with a 72-hour water fast. And what you're going to find, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with intermittent fasting or fasting in general, is that you're going to go through a lot of emotions, and you're going to start to heal the 4 bodies that I mentioned: the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual bodies all at once. So when you do this fast, you'll find that, let's start with the physical front, right? So on the physical front, you might feel a little weak. That's normal. You don't have a full supply of food that's coming in. Totally fine. That's your body's natural evolution to not overexpend energy when it's not eating. So you're fine there. You might have some caffeine withdrawals if you're not drinking coffee. Or yeah, if you're normally drinking coffee and you're not drinking it. you're going to lose some weight. You're going to lose a few pounds. You're going to lose water weight and actual fat weight, which is great. But the other thing that happens is really kind of like the miracle thing that science is really scratching the surface on. There's just a guy, and I totally, his name is escaping me. In 2016, he won the Nobel Prize on research around fasting and healing the body. So with fasting, after 72 hours, for the articles and studies that I've seen, it's about a 300% increase in what are called autophagosomes, which are these things in your body that promote autophagy, which autophagy is kind of like a raging term right now. So autophagy is really the body's way of breaking down weak and damaged and unnecessary cells in the body to heal itself. And there's kind of like, not case studies, but there's like people reporting online fasting that their acne is going away, their eczema is going away, their diabetes is going away, like a lot of things. And I haven't like actually, I can't validate what they've been through, but at least from the stories that I've seen, and I totally believe that fasting has helped them heal the body. The other thing that is very noteworthy about fasting is that when you are breaking down cells that are bad for the body or weak for the body, etc., does that ring a bell? That's cancer, right? So cancer is malformed cells within the body, and a lot of people, a lot of more emerging people, I won't say a lot of people, but a lot of more emerging, articles and blog posts about people beating cancer with fasting is starting to emerge. And it's no wonder why. You bump the autophagy levels of your body sky high, and your body is forced to just break down the bad cells. And you know what? This could be a mechanism to defeat cancer or other bad things going on with your life. So there's not a whole lot of research done there, but after going through fasting, you'll be able to experience a lot of feeling refreshed and renewed. But I just want to leave that there just for food for thought, because I don't want this video to be 20 minutes. So the next point, let's go with the mental. So the things that you'll encounter on a mental basis for a prolonged fast of 72 hours, let's say, would be recognizing the conditioning that you are under. So I also like to call this programming. And in the people that I've helped kind of go through fasting, programming would be how society has programmed you, your parents have programmed you, how all the norms have programmed you that you need to be eating 3 times a day, 6 times a day, 9 times a day, at certain times of day, etc. And you don't question it. It's to the point where you get hungry at these pre-programmed times that are not even times that you came up with. These are times that you've merely adopted from society. And I know that sounds kind of like woo-woo, like, okay, well, like, what's the big deal? I eat this many times a day. My question to you is, have you ever thought about eating other times of the day? Have you ever figured that your body doesn't want to eat in the morning? And I know there's plenty of people like that. Like for me, I hate eating in the morning. I remember growing up and I would force down food every single day just because, like, you have to have a good breakfast. Like, that's what people do, and I never questioned it. And you may resonate with that. You may be in the same situation, and maybe you are hungry in the mornings, maybe you're not. But what going through a fast will do is to shatter those paradigms and those programs that you're under that are telling you that you need to fast, that you need to eat all the time. And the fasting will break up that kind of like that muscle memory and give you a chance to sort of re-examine how you go about eating. And the other added benefit that fasting goes beyond, just the food thing is you start looking around you for, social constructs or norms that all of us in society accept but don't realize on the surface value. Like, you probably never have thought about the food timing or when you should eat. You just do it because everyone does it. You're going to start to see other things around you that have nothing to do with fasting, because going through the fasting experience is so profound that you start to learn how to break down other things. So that's kind of a little bit on the mental note, just the programming, allowing yourself to program yourself and not let society program you. Now let's go on to the emotional one. This is a good one. This is really, really good. So on the emotional body, what you're going to find is, and I'm going to say it's more common than not, at least with the people that I've helped coach fasting, and then also for other people that I've seen their accounts online. When you go through a prolonged fast, maybe 24 hours is fine, but by like hour 48, especially if you're going on to 72, you're probably going to end up crying at some point. And everyone who ends up crying doesn't really have an explanation for why they cry related to not eating. It's always related to something else. So when you start to cry, it'll be these repressed emotions that you've been bottling down. And the way I like to describe it is you're pushing all of these things down into your body And when they start to come up, kind of like energetically or metaphorically speaking, starting to come up, you bring in food and push it down. And my theory is, as you fast, you allow your body to release these things and have them come up to the surface, and you have to face them. And when you face them, I'm not talking like in a fearful way, although that could be a trigger for some people, like they could go through a fearful experience, but I've only heard of that once, so like don't be afraid of this. But it'll be things that you need to know about yourself. Like the biggest example would be like a lot of childhood trauma. I don't want to get into too many specific examples here because they're personal stories, but if you've had childhood trauma, and a lot of people that I've coached to this, it'll come up. Or, you know, fears of abandonment, or feeling like you've mistreated people and you just now realize it, or feeling like you can never be loved. And these emotions have nothing to do with your fast, and you don't even go into your fast going through it, but these come up and you cry, you process it, and in a sense it gets released. And then when you're done with that fast, you move forward with the direction that actually I understand myself a lot better. I know that I have this fear of abandonment. This is why I'm too clingy in this relationship. I'm going to give it space and allow it to flourish rather than to try to hold on tight. So the emotional part is probably, I would say, they're all really important things. It's probably like the big money thing here for everybody, because I don't care who you are, how good your childhood was. I had a great childhood and I'm very blessed and fortunate too, but I don't care like how good your childhood was. There's some trauma there in the early stages of your life, or even in the adult stages of your life, that you need to heal, that is emotional, and fasting really helps you do that. Now, I will put a caveat here. Every time you do a fast, if you're new to it, you're probably going to experience it right off the bat if you're doing a prolonged fast and this is something totally wild and out of the park that you've never done before. But once you've started to do a bunch of fasts, your body gets used to fast and fasting becomes easier. So you might have to push the envelope. And let me just give you a quick example for me. So on my first fast I ever did was 48 hours back in September, August-ish actually. And I didn't really get anything out of that. So I re-ate and I did a 3-day fast. And so by the end of the 3-day fast, I was able to get these emotions to be triggered out of me. And this is actually the reason why I started fasting. And I didn't realize there was other aspects of it. And I was able to see some of the fears that I had about some of the goals that I wanted to do in life, and why I was like blocking myself. So when you go through fasting, like for me now, I was only able to achieve that state after 5 days. And so really it has to do a lot with your comfort level with fasting. So if your body just feels like, cool, like I've done this before, it'll keep the emotions bottled up. So as you go and as you release emotions and you have more things to release, you might need to spend more time fasting, but that's kind of like a later advanced thing. The most important stuff will come up your first time or the second time. So that's it for emotional. Now the very last thing, and this is kind of obvious really because I talked about it in the beginning, is the spiritual reason. So with respect to the spiritual body, you hear about a lot of monks meditating. There's even, stories of monks meditating and dying in their meditation pose. You have religions promoting fasting and you wonder why. Well, it's a very spiritually cleansing thing. It's a body cleansing thing too. Maybe these religions were onto something that it was for cleansing your body. But for the spiritual aspect, it's a little hard to explain without experiencing it. So what I like to say is that your vibration increases. So when you fast, you're allowing yourself to become lighter and less dense in this physical world. So as you become less dense, you start to float up. And what happens is when you're fasting, you're able to achieve these meditative states that are very much more focused and visual and experiential if you're in a meditation. Or just going about day-to-day stuff, everything feels a lot lighter in flow. It's really hard to explain if you haven't experienced these states, but it brings you into a state of more bliss or more ease in your life. And that spiritual part is really, really powerful. And I continue to fast. I'm losing a little bit of weight too, but I continue to fast and take advantage of the spiritual aspects and meditate and do all my, practices of trying to be in tune with my environment and the world around me and raising my vibration. So those are kind of like the 4 aspects of fasting and why you should do them and how they improve your body. There's so many more things to it. I need to touch on every single point individually at some point. I will be making a video on how to do your first fast, but this is kind of an intro video. So if you like this video, let me know. I can keep making these videos. If I know you, I hope this helps you understand why I do fasting and why it's important to try it or consider trying it. If I don't know you, drop a message, say hi, and I'm happy to help out. So, all right, we will see you later. I will see you later. No, I won't. I'm talking to a camera. I'll see the camera later.